welcome on in to another episode of Getting Well with Terry and Friends, NHL Season Preview Edition. And today we are ready to break down the newest NHL franchise, the Seattle Kraken, who will be in their second year of existence this year. And we will break down kind of what they did in their first offseason. Maybe we'll go around the board here and kind of give our thoughts on their first year, on what they did. For me, obviously, expectations, if you look at what Vegas did, there were some expectations that Seattle would try to go the same way. The expansion draft there was quite a few bit of surprises for a lot of people until the expansion list got leaked early, but there were still some big surprises in what Seattle did, and they kind of decided to go the normal the rebuild route for an expansion team, and kind of look towards the future instead of the now and present. So obviously their first year, a normal expansion year, they finished at the towards the bottom of the league, not the very bottom, but they were towards the bottom there, and got a very good draft pick, which we'll see here in upcoming prospects section. But for the first overall year, I think it was not success for the Seattle Kraken, but I think it was a step in the right direction for their opening year and the future of the franchise overall with what they got from that first year. We'll go to Ryan first. The Seattle fan, right? You're a Seattle fan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think about your team's first year?
Well, it's exciting to get a franchise. They haven't had a team since, they competed for the Cup, back in the 1920s or something, but they never had an NHL team. So it's exciting to have any team at all. The results were not great at times. I think some of the most exciting parts of the season for me were Matty Beniers joined the team at the end of the season, and he had 10 points in the last 10 games, give or take. So it's good to see like the future and what there is. It's good to have excitement. It's good to have fans that are excited about the team. There are some rough points, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. Like defense and goaltending are a little bit uncertain now. But it's exciting to have a team, and the future is exciting. I think it's probably more of a 3 or 5 year plan for this team to get to the playoffs than instant success.
Yeah, well, definitely. And there's some actually really interesting, their point total. We'll obviously get to that at the end of the show, but their point total really surprised me on the number that their point total was. So we'll definitely get to that at the end of the show. Nick, wearing your Seattle jersey, what do you think about the Kraken's first year of existence?
Release the Kraken. Sorry, I had to start with that. They performed like an expansion team. I feel like we had unrealistic expectations for them heading into the year. Thank you to the Vegas Golden Knights for that one. But they kind of expect the way they drafted. We didn't expect them to be a great team. So this is going to be one of those fun teams that has a lot of young talent that in the future could be fun to watch. Right now, they'll win some games. They'll be a giant slayer sometimes, but I'm not expecting them to go to the playoffs anytime soon.
All right. And we will start with additions and subtractions as a kind of looking here at what Seattle did in their first offseason. So subtractions, not a big list of big name players that they lost here. Hayden Fleury, Dennis Cholowski, those I guess would be the two biggest kind of surprises. Younger players are around 23, 24 years old, so still could potentially turn into something. But Seattle decided to walk away from them. Victor Rask, no big surprise that Seattle decided to walk away from him. The fact that they traded for him in the first place was a big surprise, but definitely not a player that's going to take any team anywhere. The Rask for Niederreiter trade was one of the really only bad trades that Bill Guerin has made. And actually, I don't think it was Bill Guerin. I think that was That was the Paul Fenton, actually, who was there for like a few
I
months.
noticed a little bias in your breakdown there of the
Yeah.
Kraken player there.
Anyways, Victor Rask, not a very good player, and I'm sure Seattle will do just fine without him. But when you look at the additions, Andre Burakovsky, obviously that's a huge signing. Oliver Bergstrand, another huge signing. Those are two big offensive additions, more than covering Dylan Sprong and Victor Rask, Riley Sheehan. Yeah, these two guys will make a much big difference, much a bigger difference than those guys did. And then if you look at Justin Schultz and Michael Kempny here, more of a bottom pair, maybe a seventh or eighth type guy, a depth piece. Justin Schultz will definitely should make their top four with how Seattle's defense currently is. And then John Hayden and Martin Jones. So Martin Jones will find himself here in Seattle. I have him here as the third goaltender. So we'll have to see exactly what Seattle does. I think it would probably be smart to have him as the third and not the second. But that'll obviously be up to the Seattle coach. We'll go to Nick first this time. What do you think here? Additions and subtractions.
Yeah, one name that really popped off the page there for the additions is their future Vezina Trophy winner, Martin Jones. He's one of the best goalies in the league, and I'm glad. Sorry, no, but looking at this, I like some of the additions they've made. They are making a little bit of push to be a little bit of a better team, which is nice to see. Burakovsky was good in Colorado last year. He's streaky, but when he's on, he's on. Justin Schultz was a good defenseman, and I think we can get a decent amount from John Hayden as well. And I really like the Oliver Bjorkstrand addition. He was pretty good with Columbus last year, and they barely paid anything to get him. So, and they didn't lose any big name players. They didn't lose any of their core guys. So, yeah, I think that it's the addition subtractions was a plus for them. Even though that subtractions list was longer, the quality of names on that additions list, I think, definitely balance it out and actually favor the additions rather than the subtractions. So I think that just on this, that Seattle will be a better team this year with the players they did pick up.
I totally agree. But yeah, with an expansion team like Seattle, their subtractions list is going to be a bit higher because they have players that they're just going to want to move on from. So that's kind of more expected there. Ryan, what do you think here about Seattle's additions and subtractions?
Well, this is splitting hairs, and this is this is addressing the offseason. But the Kraken were big-time sellers at and before the trade deadline. So there's a whole list of people that they lost last year. Kelly Yarncroc, who went to the Flames. Mason Appleton went to the Jets. Mark Giordano, who was their captain, was traded to the Leafs. Colin Blackwell also traded to the Leafs. Marcus Johansson, who came from the Caps, went back to the Caps. Jeremy Lauzon went to the Predators. So they've got the turnstiles are really moving in Seattle. And some of those were players I really liked. So, time will tell as to what impact those moves will have. But there's a lot of additions and subtractions. Some of these additions are exciting. Burakovsky, obviously he's a really good player, but it's hard to tell a player coming from Colorado where he's surrounded by all this talent and playing on the third line and maybe playing on the first line here in Seattle. It's hard to tell. I like the size. I think Seattle needs size. So getting a bigger player like Burakovsky is going to be good. I think Bjorkstrand might be like the gem here, and he's gonna be probably a 20 goal scorer, and it's a player that the Kraken need. He's going to be versatile. So I'm really excited about those two players. I'm less excited about the defense. Justin Schultz is a number of years away from when he won the Stanley Cup with the Penguins and was at 50 points. Kempny is an unknown, right? We don't know really what he's going to bring because he was either playing in outside of North America or he's been injured. So, the defense needs help, and it's hard to tell if these guys are going to provide help. And goaltending's another story. And I agree, Martin Jones. Is he the one that people call beach balls? Is that the same guy?
I don't know. I don't know if that was that exact nickname, but people definitely said he can't stop a beach ball. That's definitely been said
Oh,
about
Beach
one
Ball
of the
Jones.
yeah. That's definitely possible.
So yeah, I think goalie is a real problem. And like the other day, we talked about the Sharks, and they've got a surplus of goalies, and perhaps one of those could end up as a backup for Grubauer.
Yeah, I don't know what they do with Chris Driedger then. See, because now they have Driedger, Grubauer, and Martin Jones.
Isn't Drieger hurt?
Yeah, he's torn ACL. He's out for half the
So
year.
Martin Jones is the backup.
Oh, he's gone for half the year?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so they could potentially go and get somebody for half the year, but then you've got 4 goalies, and you would have to look at getting rid of one at that point. But I guess that would explain why they went after Jones here. But looking at top prospects, upcoming free agents here with with Seattle, 1 million in cap space, so not a whole lot of wiggle room here for the Kraken. When we looked at their top prospects, you have Shane Wright and Matthew Beniers, Jaeger Furcus, David Goyette, Yanni Nyman, Ty Nelson. The big names are the top 2 centers there. Those are going to be the future of this team. Shane Wright falling to them at 4th was shocking, and it's really good. It was a really good thing for this organization. Shane Wright, specifically, when Seattle faces Montreal, you are going to want to bet Shane Wright to score. He already has hinted or said actually on the record that he looks forward to facing the teams that passed on him to kind of show them that they made a mistake. So definitely, I'm going to be focusing, assuming they make the team, but I don't see how I don't see how both of them don't make this team, but we'll obviously have to see if they want to just bring up one or both to start the year. Maybe we'll have to actually see what they do here. But Wright and Beniers should be the top 2 centers on this team for a long time. Looking at upcoming free agents, obviously Martin Jones 1-year deal, Susie Borgen, Vince Dunn, 3 defensemen that are upcoming free agents. Donskoy, Kuhlman, and John Hayden. So again, Seattle's not really losing anybody this upcoming offseason of importance. Vince Dunn, I assume they would want to try to re-sign most likely Carson Soucy as well. But not like no real big names that are upcoming free agents here. So Seattle will be mostly set for the next upcoming years. We will go to Ryan first. What do you think here about prospects and upcoming free agents?
Well, I agree. The first 2 names, those 2 centers, are really the key here, and it's kind of like the core of the future team. This is like if you want to look at what the Kraken are going to be in the next few years, they're going to be the core of the team. Beniers has got great hands, is great passing. He's going to make an impact on the power play. I don't think he's going to he had roughly 10 points in his 10 games last year. I don't think he will ultimately be a point per game player, but it's going to take some time to get there. I think that the pace that he set last year is probably unrealistic. If you look at the futures for the Calder Trophy, those 2 guys are around 4th or 5th or 6th. So no one's really expecting these guys to knock everyone's socks off their first year, but it could be pretty exciting. Shane Wright is a little bit different story. He's the scoop on him is that he does subtle things. He's very good at spacing. He's good at passing. He's good at knowing, having awareness of the ice. And what he'll do is he'll go to a place on the ice and draw a defender to him, and that will create space for the other players to set up a scoring attempt. So he's just not this prototypical flashy player. And that's probably one of the reasons why he dropped to 4th is that, he's just not this prototypical scorer that a lot of teams are looking for. So it remains to be seen what how much he develops and what he turns into. As far as the other folks on that list, Jagger Furcus is 5'10", 150. He's kind of like Yanni Gord. We already have one of those on the team. Apparently, he's very exciting. I don't know if he's going to make the team this year, maybe at the end of the year, but what remains to be seen. I'm not familiar with the other names on the list.
All right. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be fans that just want to get a Jaeger Furcus jersey because of his name. That's a really unique name. And I'm sure people will definitely want to.
The Furcus Circus is what they call him.
Huh, interesting. Hey, how can you not cheer for a guy named Jaeger Furcus? But Nick, I know not so much about prospects, but what do you think about their cap and their upcoming free agents?
Yeah, no, I like that Jaeger Fergus name. I can just picture some drunk fans at the arena going Jaeger. But
I think it's Jagger.
Oh, it's Jagger. Okay, never mind then. Yeah. But yeah, looking at it, obviously I know the top two names, Shane Wright, and we saw a little bit of Matty Beniers last year. Has decent potential, top prospect for a reason. It was good to see him get some experience in the NHL last year. Looking at their free agents, probably the big one that pops out to me, and I wonder if he's going to be similar to Burakovsky, is Jonas Donskoy, someone who came over from Colorado that we're expecting bigger things from, and he just didn't have that type of year that we were expecting from him last year, and maybe it was because of the talent around him in Colorado. It may be the same thing with Burakovsky, because Burakovsky's played in Colorado and Washington, so he's had talent around him. So we'll see. But yeah, Donskoy is someone I think they're going to need to try to re-sign, because I do think that he will be able to progress in year 2 with this team. And of course, Martin Jones. I'm not going to make Martin Jones jokes again, but he's somebody, I don't know if they'll re-sign him or not, depending on the future of Dreiger. See if how he recovers from that injury, or if they sign anybody. But yeah, nothing too crazy on the upcoming free agent there. Other than I think Donskoy and maybe John Hayden are the ones that grab my attention the most.
All right. Martin Jones definitely does something well, and that's help you get a higher draft pick. He will definitely help getting a higher draft pick by letting in a bunch of goals.
Cashing overs. There you go.
With overs, yes. So definitely a goalie to look at for the overs. We're going to go to the possible lineup now, and we're going to do something a little bit different here. So I'll bring it up. This is obviously the possible lineup that I came up with, but we're going to play around with it a bit here. So obviously Chris Driedger is on the injured list, so he will go over there. It will look like a Grubauer and Jones duo here to start the year. This is what I came up with. You could potentially see maybe Shane Wright going to the third line, maybe Beniers will get the second line. Gord, I have him here as the top line center, assuming just because of experience. I'm not quite sure if they'd want to put Beniers or Wright in that position to be the top line center right away. I think that's a little bit too much pressure. You probably want to have them. Obviously, you don't want to have them on a fourth line. It would be better to have them in the AHL. But if you can have a second and third line, I think that's good. Looking at the rest of the lineup, Morgan Geekie played pretty well with Seattle at times. You could find him going up here. James Schwartz, probably more of a third line guy. But basically with Seattle's forwards, there's lots of different spots you can move guys around. Brandon Tanev, also currently injured, but I'm assuming will be ready for the regular season or sometime in the early season. He's definitely not a fourth line player. So again, lots of different things you could do with Seattle's forward lineup. Looking at the defense, I think Alexiak and Larson, Dunn and Schultz, probably the top two pairs, and then Susie and somebody else. I would assume would be the bottom pair. Maybe Cale Fleury, maybe Company, maybe Borgen. But this is kind of how I see the lineup going. But obviously with Seattle, there's lots of different things you could do. I think Bjorkstrand should be on their top line. It's possible he starts as a second line right wing, but I would have him here on the top line. Just my opinion. We'll go to Nick first this time. What do you think about Seattle's lineup and any changes you think that we should make here?
I think it's kind of an interesting lineup here because there's a lot of young talent. There's a lot of potential here. I love the second and third line centers. You can exchange those two either way, with Beniers on second or third, or Wright on second or third. Obviously, you're not going to want to have either on the top line. I think you got to approach. They want to approach them similar to the way the Rangers approach Alexis Lafreniere, where they put him on the third line. So I think that may be a decent look. I think the only thing I would really change is I'd probably have Eberle on the top line, maybe. I think that he has that top line scoring potential because we saw him. I remember 2 years ago we saw him skate with Anders Lee and Matthew Barzal. So I think that he can easily be a top line guy. He's done it before. So Yanni Gourde, I think once Beniers or Wright fully develops, they'll be the top line center. Yanni Gourde will go back to where he was with Tampa Bay, where he was a good third line guy. When he was part of that third line with Goudreau and Blake Coleman. That third line really worked well. I think that he'll be a good third liner once those the two young guys are developed more. And overall, I think that this is a lineup that has a lot of offensive possibility. And then when you look at their blue line, though, that's where the big question mark is for this team. Alexiak, Larson, Dunn, Schultz. Like, this is not a blue line that screams very good, especially compared to like the team that we talked about last, or the team I talked about last with the Vegas Golden Knights have just a far superior blue line than this team could touch. But like that, when you're looking at it like that, I think that this team is going to struggle defensively again. They're going to expect to step up from Grubauer here this year in the second year. I wonder if just the first year was just they didn't have a good defense around him, or maybe this was just he just was being hidden a little bit by Colorado's great team in front of him. So overall, I think this team has a lot of potential. We'll see.
All right. Ryan, what do you think about the lineup that I put together, and what kind of changes would you make if you were the coach?
Well, I'm not an expert on how to pair up players, and I just have looked at some of the other media sources, and there seems to be a lot of interest in having Matty Beniers center the top line. I don't know if that's going to be a reality, but that seems to be the projection that I'm seeing. But there's different ways you could put these players. I've heard of a killer bees line of Burakovsky, Beniers, and Bjorkstrand. I agree with Nick. Eberle may be on the top line with Beniers. This team also needs a captain, and Jordan Eberle is probably going to be the captain of the team. I don't know if that makes sense to put him on the top line for that reason, but I have seen Burakovsky, Beniers, Eberle as a pairing.
I like that. I like that a lot.
The one thing I did find also is speculation that Shane Wright would be the center on the third line with Donskoy and who's the other one? Donskoy and is it
Schwartz?
Yeah, Jaden Schwartz, because there you have two really dynamic, fast players and a center who is a great passer, and that could be a really interesting third line. I don't have much of an opinion on the fourth line, and I agree. Like the defense is kind of a question mark. Carson Soucy was the one guy that had a positive plus minus on the team, and Vince Dunn led the team, led the defense in points. So those two kind of stand out for me, and the rest is kind of a mess. And I think the hope is that Schultz and Kempny can contribute and improve this defense, but that remains to be seen. Like I mentioned in the first segment, the goaltending is really a question mark. Grubauer did not live up to his potential, in my opinion. He played at one point in the season, it looked like Hackstall was going to Drieger as the main guy. Like they were sort of shifting like the assignment. That it made it almost seemed like he was getting, wasn't going to be the top goaltender, but he did finish the season in that role, and he played a ton of games. So he played 55 games, which apparently is a lot in today's NHL. So goaltending, like, is one of the major problems on this team, in my opinion. Yeah, so that's my only comment on that.
All right. I think moving on to last 5. Well, obviously,
last year.
There'll be a last 1 year for this team only. But when going on to look at Seattle's futures for this year, like I said already, this is going to be a team that I look for the over with. Like we said, defense and goaltending, not so good, but their offense, they're going to score some goals. So this is definitely would be an over team for me. And it's good to have that kind of team that you kind of, I shouldn't say you know what to expect, because obviously it's possible that the Wright and Beniers may not get off to the best starts, obviously being young. Maybe the offense doesn't show up. Maybe the defense is better than we think. Really, anything can happen, but it's good to have an overall consensus of what you think the team is going to do going into the year. Looking at their last year, 27, 49, and 6, 60 points in 82 games, and they missed the playoffs. And now their point total this year is 81 and a half. So that is 21 and a half points more than what they had last year. As I said at the beginning of the show, I found that total to be a little bit surprising, just at how big that total is. Now, obviously, you have to look at the two pieces that they did add, the two forwards, and Bjorkstrand and Burakovsky. Assuming Wright and Beniers have good years, it is certainly possible that Seattle could have a good year and finish above 82 points. But everything would have to go right, in my opinion, for that to happen. So 81 and a half is obviously a big number there. It would be a lean to the under, but I won't be betting it, at least not at this point here. Seattle to make the playoffs, plus 340 to make the playoffs, minus 450 not to, plus 6,500 to win the division, and plus 10,000 to hoist the Stanley Cup this year. Really no real futures that I'm looking at with Seattle at this point in time right now. But like I said, I will be looking at overs and team total overs with this team, as well as player prop with the young guns that they have. We'll go to Ryan first this time. What do you think about the last year and the futures for this year?
Well, it appears to me that this is a longer term rebuilding plan. No one's expecting them to make the playoffs this year. There's the good thing about a franchise that's just starting is there's a lot of excitement and the fans aren't impatient. So, but that could change if the fans start to realize that not only is this upcoming season not going well, but next year's team might not make the playoffs. There's going to be some impatient fans, and you might start hearing some boo birds, from the crowd. And one thing that I read was that they hired Dave Lowry as the assistant from Winnipeg, and that he may be actually the coach in waiting, and that there could be a coaching change during the course of the year. Of course, we don't know how this season is going to play out, and the expectations are low, but there is that possibility. I would like to see some success. I would like to see this go well, but I'm a little bit pessimistic. It's just hard to, it's not a good formula for success when you have a University of Michigan player potentially playing on your top line. And, it's exciting to have these young players, but, it's just not a formula for success. So I would lean to the under in that. Also, maybe looking at some individual spots, the Kraken still have not beaten Calgary. They have not beaten Vegas, and they have not beaten their rival Vancouver. They're 0-4 against all those teams. So I would look for maybe those spots. There are going to be some big games, and they want to get some W's against those games in their division. So I would look for those spots as some potential betting spots. I think the defense is going to be the key. If these new additions to defense can be helpful, that might be a signal for success over the course of the season. I think there's going to be improvement on offense. I think we could see some higher point scores. I think they're maybe 30th in the league this past year in scoring. So look for that number to improve. But overall, I think this is going to be a transitional year, and there's going to be some rough patches. But there may be some good positive spots as well.
All right. Nick, I see when I mentioned that it was 81.5 points, you were as surprised as I was when I typed it in. But that is definitely the correct point total. It is 81.5. So what do you think about the futures for Seattle this year and their last year?
Yeah, I mean, they weren't the greatest last year. They're an expansion team. They got 60 points. Yes, they made improvements in the offseason, but are they 22 points better than last year? Now, when I first saw that, my first thought was maybe this is just the contrarian in me thinking maybe the play's the over, because people are going to have the exact thoughts that maybe me and you both had. We're like, wow, 81 points. Oh, that's an immediate under. Maybe the books know something we don't. Maybe this is one of those, and I don't, and usually these are more like just regular games, like regular season games more than futures, but 81.5 feels like maybe a trap for people wanting to see, okay, this team put up 60 points last year. They have to put up 22 more points this year to hit the over. I'd lean towards the over. That's just the contrarian in me thinking now, because maybe they are expecting their defense to be better. Maybe they're expecting Grubauer to step up this year. Maybe they think that Shane Wright and Matty Beniers are going to come up and make an immediate impact with this team. Maybe the books are expecting them. That's why they laid this number, because I thought this number was going to be maybe low 70s, maybe that 70.5 range. So seeing the 81.5, that number is probably way too high. And probably that's what the books want us to think. That's just the contrarian to me thinking that. So I guess I'll lean towards an over. No, I don't think they make the playoffs. No, I don't think they win the division, and definitely not the cup. But that 81.5 number seems very tricky.
Yeah, I definitely
just doesn't
agree.
seem right.
I did want to say one thing about what Ryan said previously. Yes, Dave Hackstall, the coach, when they hired him to be the coach, I was really surprised because there was definitely a lot of other names that I would have went with. So I could definitely see Lowry potentially being the coach in waiting, because Hackstall is, I guess, for an expansion team, he's fine because he's not really expected to win, but not really a coach that I'd want to go long term with. But that's just my opinion. And then finally, because we are talking about the end here, something I was thinking about after talking about Vegas yesterday or the day before yesterday. And what Nick said is right. Vegas definitely has a much better defense than Seattle. But a prediction here, I think Seattle will score more goals than Vegas will this year. It may not be a lot more, but I do think that Seattle's offense will be a little bit better than Vegas is this year.
But Vegas' goal differential will be better.
Potentially, yeah. But I don't think, as I said earlier when we did the first show, the Anaheim Ducks show, I think this division is going to be the closest.
Yeah.
Potentially the Metropolitan could be pretty close as well. But I think this division is going to be very close. So that's my final thoughts here. Brian, any other thoughts about the Kraken that you want to say before we finish off here?
I think that about covers it. There could be more, like you can say this with any team. There could be more activity in the weeks to come. There's this team has the ability to make some more moves.
Yeah, maybe not the cap space, but they definitely could move players that have cap hits. Like there could be yeah, there definitely could be a lot of moves, especially with an expansion team. Like someone like Eberle could potentially be on the move for the right price. You never really know. Nick, any final thoughts about the Kraken before we head on out here?
No, I think we touched on everything for this one there. So I'll start the show the way I began the show. Release the Kraken.
There we go. And that is today's show on the Kraken. Make sure to tune in tomorrow on Monday for the Calgary Flames. And also, we will have the MLB show at 4. And then Tuesday will be the Edmonton Oilers. So we have the two Alberta teams back-to-back in the next couple of days before finishing off with Vancouver to finish off the Pacific Division. But thanks everybody for watching. If you have some different thoughts or any thoughts at all, leave some comments after. Obviously, a lot of people will watch the show after it's done. So leave us some comments below and your thoughts about Seattle. And thanks everybody for watching, and have a good one.